listeners, welcome to Show Up, Stand Out, online visibility series for entrepreneurs. We are going to talk about sales today with an amazing guest that I want to introduce you to, Julia Andrews, the founder and the creator of The Art of Feminine Selling, a sales methodology that is using vulnerability and empathy as a strength. Now, for a change, this is going to be a brilliant conversation. So tune in and cancel everything you have for the next half an hour. Julie often says that sales is her second language and English is the third.
That's right. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to chat and to dive into this topic.
Oh, I love it. And I love the fact that you're bringing much more, feminine energy because, usually traditional idea of sales is very masculine. It's very in your face. It's very aggressive. It's very powerful. But we're not machines. We're not robots. We have internal feelings. So it's not so easy to do. And so many people are holding themselves back. And I'm talking about women. So many women are holding themselves back. They're not, they're not appreciating, I think, what they have, even when they are naturally actually good at selling. But I think that it's just some sort of happening in their minds that they convince themselves otherwise.
Right. Well, I think what's happened, and it's important to acknowledge one pivotal thing or one huge thing, is that traditional sales training or schooling or whatever, right, was created for men by men. So it was natural that was, kind of like the masculine strengths coming out in the way that they would want people to sell. Now, women would feel, some of us, and this is not like a positive or a negative, it's just is. Some of us are a little bit more masculine, have more masculinity within us. Some of us are just much more feminine. And what I found is a lot of women are very repelled by having to act like a dude or having to act like a man or having to be, like you said, in your face with it. And what I've, after having a sales career for over 20 years, what I've looked at is, women are so poised to sell in a very huge way because we are already a natural connectors. We want to empathize with people. We want to share stories that naturally bring out vulnerability within us. Even if you recognize it or not, by sharing, what you've been through and empathizing with the other person, you are creating that connection naturally. So one of the things that I hear a lot is that, why would you show vulnerability? That's typically viewed as weak. So nobody wants to be viewed as weak, especially when we're out there, selling and slaying the dragon or whatever, insert what is it in your mind that you're doing. And what I'm trying to showcase is that you don't have to be like that. There's another way to do it where you can feel like yourself. Yes, there's some masculinity in going in and getting the job done, that kind of forceful way that you have to, okay, let's go ahead and do this. We have to kind of take control. That's kind of masculine, but that's not negative, right? The way that I teach, and I teach students, clients, when I go into companies and help them with their sales force, is really to look at what are the strengths that we can amplify without making anything about it, like making it negative, labeling it basically, and allowing the people however they want to engage, of course, following a structure, allow them to have and use their natural tendencies. So I think there's a big communication or a big theme that we need to chat or talk about and bring to the light, that you don't have to dim the way that you are in order to sell better, because the people that identify with you, first and foremost, right? Not everybody's going to like you, and that's perfectly fine. There's a lot of other people to go around to support and help, people, but you should, when you showcase who you are, you naturally either attract or repel, and that's a great thing. Why repelling? Because those are not your people. So that's good. And within the conversation, being vulnerable in the way that, you know, you identify yourself maybe in their story, you share part of yourself with the person, you empathize. Those are all natural connecting traits that women are just innate at it. And it's something to be celebrated.
I love that. I also think that maybe even the words, you know, vulnerability, people exaggerate the meaning of the real meaning of it. You know, some people just straight away, they jump the gun. Women,
Yeah.
you think like you need to show your vulnerability, and they're like, yes, you know, my marriage is not working out. You're like, hang on a second, not that much. You know, you
Yeah.
don't need to go like completely open up and everything, like every little fear you have in your mind, and spill it out. That's not what
Right.
we are talking about. And I think that I see that a lot with when you're talking about vulnerability, when you're talking about sharing, or even,
Yeah.
you know, using your personal profile for visibility. And people would say that, they would say, but I don't want, I'm private, I don't want to open up. But you don't really have to.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought up that point, because it's good to make the distinction. So what we don't want to do is just what you shared, right? Like airing out dirty laundry. That is almost like that's not what you want to do, and that's not what the other person cares to know. I think a great example of vulnerability would be like, just pretend like if you're selling, what would be a good thing? Like coaching with, you know, I'm trying to look at something that could be so relatable. Losing weight. Let's just use that, right? Everybody either is happy or not happy, wants to lose 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever. Being vulnerable is saying to someone, when you're trying to connect and trying to let them know that you understand where they're coming from, is sharing a story. Well, let's pretend I am a wellness coach, or a lot, you know, somebody's going to help you lose weight. I would say, you know what, Juliette, you know, I understand where your fears are coming from, because I was once in your position. I was once overweight, and I know exactly how you feel when somebody invites you to a cocktail party, and instead of thinking about how good of a time you're going to have, you're thinking about, oh my God, what am I going to wear to feel good about myself, because none of my clothes fit. That's a very easy example of sharing vulnerability about how you've also experienced something, that why you're maybe being a transformational coach in this space, because you have this calling of helping people. You know their pains, you know their struggles, and you want to support them. That's a way of being empathetic, and also sharing a story. And you can get more specific if you want, but that's a very simple way of underlining. And like, was that clear, I guess,
Yeah,
Juliette?
absolutely. I actually had just last year that period where none of my clothes fit. And I know that guys you are watching is like, what is Juliette on about? But yeah, that can happen to, you know, small people too. And
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
horrible, horrible feeling. It really is exactly what you said. So in a way, you just shared it as an example, and I was there. So I totally straight away resonate. And I'm sitting there thinking, God, thank God I'm back into my own size.
Exactly. But what that did right now is it transported you to a moment in time in your life, and you immediately connected and resonated with that story. And that's exactly what I teach people to do with vulnerabilities, to pick moments of their own life that they already can share, and feel that the message that they're trying to convey is lands with that person. But you have to open up your heart. You can't just be like, yeah, I've been perfect all my life, I've always been skinny, because nobody's going to connect with that. I mean, this is just be real, right? So you want to be open about it. Or like, if you've always been skinny, you can say something like, you know what, I've always been skinny, and people don't know that I've had an issue with an eating disorder. People would be like, what? Yeah, I had. So there's different ways to actually connect, because I believe that if you're an entrepreneur, there's a reason why you're being pulled to serve clients in this way. And you can use your story as a positive in a way of bridging that gap when you're having enrollment conversations. They're so powerful. And right then and there, you realize if the person is either right for you, if you are connecting with them, if you can help them, if you can make a difference for their life. And it's all about really aligning products and services that benefit, the client, and that also make you really deliver on your promise.
Actually, what you're saying, and we are now, the guys might say, okay, well, we're talking about sales conversation. Come on, girls, give me some, sales hacks or something. But this is one of the hacks. So when you're on your discovery, or not discovery, when you're on your call, don't make it about sales, even for yourself. Don't have it at the back of your head. Actually make it about that connection and alignment. And how can what you're offering be of the most value to this person as a perfect fit? That energy is a completely different angle to approach any conversation.
Yeah. And I think, I say this a lot, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. We're not in the business of convincing people. Okay. I don't care to convince someone. I care to show them. So first of all, the first thing you want to do, obviously, there's steps to making sure that your conversation is a success, is successful for both parties. And one of them is you want to set up you want to be talking to viable clients. You want to be talking to people that are qualified, that have raised their hand and said, hey, I want to know more about what you're saying, so that it's an equal exchange of energy. You're not trying to pull them in. They've already want to meet you there. Now, from there, you want to make sure that you're asking questions that actually identify what's the biggest trouble, what's the biggest pain, how can you help him, what is the dream, all these questions that you want to make sure that you're the right person for the job, right? And then from there, you want to make sure that you're like you said, like you're making it about how can I basically align the products or services that I offer to best serve this individual, because we don't want to try to, persuade or convince that this is the right thing. What you want to do is act as I say to my students, you want to act like an advisor, a trusted advisor. You want to give them the information that they need to make an educated decision for themselves. And then from that point, it's a very clear yes or a very clear no. You know what I mean? So from that point, you're always, this vulnerability and empathy is infused in your questions, in your conversation that you're having, your dialogue that you're having, so that you're able to uncover what's really the reason they're on the phone with you.
Exactly. And I love it because, first of all, I agree with you 100%. We're not in business of convincing. And in fact, when you start trying to convince other people, you're doing something wrong. The moment you feel that energy that you're talking, whether it's just a chat on Messenger you're having with someone, or, and hopefully those people are not on your calls, because that's a waste of time of yours and theirs, right? So that kind of pre-qualifier, but you need to make sure that the person is open. So when people are complaining, they're saying, oh, I'm having such a low, like I don't convert anybody on the calls and I don't want to make this calls because they're wasting my time. But they're just impatient. They're too fast to book the call. And I think that they're putting too much hope on that something happens on the call, where the whole magic happens way before the call.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I think that's one of the biggest misses, is that I do my heavy lifting on before we get on the phone, qualifying them. And if you're new to that term, qualifying just means that you're sifting through, you're making sure you're getting rid of people that are just tire kickers. You're getting through, like you're niching it down. It's like a sifter, right? It's like, or think about a funnel. It's like it starts broad and it starts getting closer and closer, like little, because you're asking either questions through a questionnaire before the call, a application process, you name it. You're really basically saying, let's see if we are aligned, and let's not waste each other's time. So by the time they get on the call, it's a more likelihood that it's a yes than a no. I mean, it could also end up being where, you know what, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Great, But I'm in the business of having relationships with people, and having relationships that it's not just a one-off or a transactional type of a one-off kind of thing. So I want to make sure that this person, I'm going to be able to serve them in different stages of their business, either starting out, intermediate or advanced. So I think we do a disservice to us by not doing that, because we pay for it at the end.
Yes.
People think that the event happens when you ask for the business. Let me ask you a question. I want you to think about this realistically as you as the consumer. When you're going to be making a big investment, right? 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever. You probably are going to do a lot of research. And when you're on the phone with this individual or in person or on Zoom, you probably determined if this is the right person before they ask for the business. You've made up your mind already because you're going to those lengths to actually be on the phone. You already know what kind of investment you're going to be making. So on the call, one of the things that I also teach is to get many commitments before you ask for the big one, which is become your client, which is the commitment of time, the commitment of financial resources, how much, if they have money allocated for this. This is important to have a conversation around this. We shouldn't be dancing around that. And the one of the biggest for me that I see is a commitment to change. Are they open to something different? Are they willing to trust you? Are they, because at the end of the day, the majority of times it's not about the money. If somebody is really believing that this is the one answer to their prayer, they're going to find a way to pay you.
That's true.
If not, they're going to put everything in a scope of, well, I don't have the right time and I don't have the right money. They're trying to justify the investment. And if it doesn't, then we shouldn't even be asking them for the business. We should uncover what is the real concern, what is the real fear. And maybe you'll realize that, what this is not the right person for you. You can recommend them out to somebody else, or you can support them with something else, but not leave them hanging or on the fence.
I love that because, that opens up a different world of opportunities. And just to summarize what you said, and I love the fact that you mentioned that you really need to discuss whether a person, before they come sometimes onto the call, you can already say, well, look, this investment we're talking about is, say, for example, $2,000. Do you have money for this even? Because, I don't want to waste your time and on this call and you can't afford it. Do you have money allocated? These are all great questions to ask. And you said there's no need to tiptoe around it or dance around it. Just ask, because it's a fair, straightforward, honest question. There is no need to hold yourself back asking for it, because you're going to get a no or any kind of excuses, array of excuses on the call. However, if that all happened and on the call you have a person, but there might not be a match, that's a great, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing
100%.
you. Yeah, and people work with people. For me personally, the energy of people around me is so important. And it took me so many years in my business to actually realize that this is what is wrong. I'm not filtering people. I'm working with people who are so wrong for me. I feel miserable all the time. And so, so this is a different thing. I'll be looking at a person trying to feel how I feel about them. If they have to be in my world more often, how do I feel about this? Are they the correct person to have? And even if they have 5 times more than I'm asking, but they're the wrong person, I know I'm going to pay in the end from feeling horrible every time I have to see them or meet them or talk to them.
I'll give you an example really quickly, and this just happened this week, so it's kind of vivid in my mind. One of my clients basically said to me, hey, she posted a question for me. She said, you know what, Julia, I got a potential client. He reached out to me via social, and we were exchanging kind of information. I was letting her know how I work and such, and she was being very snappy and rude on her kind of responses. She's like, and she gave me a really, really bad feeling about her, and I politely declined and said we were not a fit. And I'm so glad she listened to her intuition, because the next, string of messages this actual person responded to her were rude, were negative, and I thought to myself, we don't need that in our lives. No. As much as you're trying to get clients, this is a preview of what it is to come. It's just like when you're dating, you go out for a date, right? And it's like you're trying to meet someone, you're in the market of, trying to find a suitable partner or what have you, and you go out to coffee or to dinner, whatever, right? insert experience for you. And you would recognize, you're like, oh my God, I'm noticing these and I'm noticing that. And I know I still want to be in a relationship, but I don't want this. Listen to that. And that's the same with a client, because they're showing you their like latest hits. They're showing you the latest hits. And it's like, and if you don't pick up on that because you're so hell bent on getting someone, right, you are ignoring the red flags.
Oh my God, I am so happy you're talking about this, because people think that it's not just, it doesn't have to be so expressive as, for example, in your example, the abuse, right? It could be how fast are they answering your messages? Is it easy to communicate with them? Because that will drive you insane.
I know. And it's like, it's just, people are just showing you, and Oprah has a quote saying, like, people will show you on the first time who they are. It's your chance, or it's your duty to actually listen, because they're showing you already. And she said, no, I'm not interested in this. And I'm so glad that she did that, because I was already feeling the negativity energy just from the information. I was just like, oh, I don't want this. Because sometimes, and I'm not shaming anyone, you may be in a situation where you're like, you know what, I just need a client. All right, take her on or him on. But you have to understand, you're going to go through a lesson, because you're going to realize that, this ain't worth it. It's making me hate my job, or hate my business, or hate my, what I do. And sometimes there's no shame in that. I'm just going to lay it out there. But you're probably not going to do that again, because you're going to realize that it's not worth it.
So true. I remember in my journey, and when I started thinking about this, the quality of people, there was one gentleman, he rang me on the phone, and before he started talking to me, he cleared his throat. Now I have a little pet hate about it, because my dad used to do that. He'd pick up the phone and clear it, and I would be always saying, can you just don't do this before you pick up the bloody phone? But when that gentleman did that, and then he started talking, the moment I heard his voice, there were red flags. There was this notes that I heard just in the way how he introduced himself. It was a complete no. And I said, that was the first time in my business career when I said no. Straight away, I, made an excuse. I said, I'm full up. I can't take any more clients. And I can't, and that was a no. And then I blocked his number. So when he tried to call me again, you wouldn't, I don't want to hear that ever in my life. But I am, I'm different. I'm not like maybe I'm not like everyone, but maybe there's people like me, or should be more like me, because I really, really now judge the quality of people around me, because that will affect my well-being. Not even just that I'm going to, be thinking about them, but thinking causes physical issues, insecurities cause disease, and you just feel so horrible. It's like you're wilting. And I want to protect my well-being.
Yeah, so, that's very important. That's very important. It's fair game. The same way that somebody would feel like, I'm giving somebody money, and this person, I just don't feel good to be either coached or buy their services, or have them influence my mind. It doesn't feel good. And the same way goes when we have the opportunity to bring on a client, or hire, or have them hire us and such. I think it's very important to do that, because I've done it. I'm in a just vulnerable moment. I actually, one of my very first consulting clients, first of all, I wanted the testimonial. I wanted to get my name out there and everything. And I was willing to overlook. Maybe I remember the first meeting so vividly, and everything looked right. Like I could help them. They had a problem that I could definitely deliver on with my solution. They would, pay me what I was asking. But then I felt, I had a couple meetings, and I felt like, oh, I don't know if this, the temperaments and their personalities is going to jive. And that was the first sign. We ended up canceling the contract 3 months in, and it was just, I lost money on that contract. I walked away, and I needed it for my own mental health. And I wouldn't have done that if I would have paid attention to the red flags. But sometimes we are so enthusiastic about, what we're going to do, and we want to do it.
Or desperate. Sometimes we're just desperate.
we want to really, you know, kind of get our first client, and we ignore those signs and they backfire. And this one was no different. But you know what? That was a lesson that I needed to learn.
It's so true. I actually had a similar situation, not in my business. Actually, well, they became my business client later, but there was somewhere where I needed a job. And I walked into a place and I saw the owner of the place, and I heard the voice. And this is one of those like magical moments in life. And the voice said, "Do not believe a word this man is going to say to you." It was not even like, usually like our soul communicates with just small words. This was a big sentence. This was like as big a warning as you can get. 5 years of my life, I was in a relationship. So we're like a first employer and employee, and then a business and a client we were shouting at each other. It was insane. It was like the bad marriage. And yet there was this vulnerability, and not a good kind. That's where you're afraid to walk away because you're going to lose the money, because, you know, what if you don't find anyone else? And you talk yourself into this disempowered place where it's like a trap. It's like you're digging yourself deeper in a hole, you know? And I felt so liberated when finally, you know, there was the last drop and I left. And again, a lesson. And I'm listening to you and thinking 3 months versus 5 years. I definitely don't learn very quickly with people, but now I do.
Yeah. The good thing is, you know, and you mentioned something I think very important. I want you to know that when what you tell yourself has a positive or a negative impact on your life, that it's tangible. That's what's crazy about it. You can either empower your mind or you can disempower your mind. And the consequences are tangible consequences. And sometimes we feel like, oh, mindset is just in the mind. There's, you know, we don't touch this thing, right? But no, it does. When you start taking inventory of what is a decision given you, positive or negative, or what has happened. So I think it's super important, and which leads me to a point that I want to make around women in sales and women asking for the things that they want, right? So that they can continue to empower their brain and their mind in their inner chatter versus disempower themselves. And sales allows you to do that with just simple questions. I want to have 2 questions that I want the audience to write down. And the first question, again, no judgment. This is purely to make an assessment of where you're at, okay? So don't do that to yourself and judge you. The first question would be, do you always get what you want? And just write it out and just kind of think on that. In my business, in my relationships, in my friendships, with money, with my kids, in life, with my whatever it is, just think about that. The second question to that is, do you always ask for what you want, right? And if not, yes, no, sometimes, why? And this is going to lead you, basically you're opening one door and then another and then another. It's going to lead you into, is something getting in the way? Is something bigger getting in the way of me not making sales, or not, you know, what am I using as a shield, right? And this is going to really open it up to help you so that you can make that powerful ask at the end. Or you can start by doing something small and then building the habit of asking for the things that you want in your life.
You know, I love the angle here, because you will notice that if you have a problem to ask for the sales, you probably most likely have other areas in your life when you're not asking for what you deserve, want, desire. You're probably not asking. And if you look at sales and the whole thing to, you know, reach out to people, build relationships, offer them, you know, a choice or a chance to get to know each other. It doesn't have to be sales straight away anyway. But the more you ask and offer, and don't get hooked up on every no, the more you are building a habit of actually asking for what you want. Yeah. You want this person to reply. You want this person to maybe jump on a quick call or have a chat or audio call or whatever. And then you want them to consider your program. You want them to go on a call. And
here's a caveat to that. And I think it's very important and responsible for me to share this with everybody who's listening, because it's a two-part thing. One is the willingness, I mean, the desire to ask, the courage, being courageous to ask. And the second thing is being okay with getting crushed or getting a no or getting, rejected. If that, why is like, Julia, why are you saying this? Well, here's the thing. There's no reward without a risk, because it's a 50-50 split. You can either get a yes, insert the desire, just insert that desire, right? Whatever is most powerful to you. You could get a yes, and it's going to take courage to be willing to, maybe in humility, maybe to get a no. So play out the both scenarios in your head. So if I get a no, what changed? Did I lose my life? Did I lose an arm? Maybe your ego is going to get all messed up, but that's okay, right? That's the worst thing. But what would happen if you get a yes? What things could be impacted in your family, in your career, in your business, in your mind? You have to make the decision to do it regardless of the outcome, because the guaranteed is that you're never going to get a yes if you don't ask. That's the guaranteed.
That's true. that is true. And then also, maybe to add this, another thing to just not focus on is that if you speak to 10 people, it doesn't mean that all of these 10 people are, first of all, in need of or a good match for what you're offering, B, in the right time.
Yeah.
To work with you. Sometimes timing is very important. So right. You can't get upset if you got 3, 4, 5, 9 no's. You can't get upset. It's just wrong match. It's nothing to do with you and your ego. It's a wrong match for these people and you, and maybe some of them could have turned out to be nightmare clients, and it's great to just let them go at this stage.
Yeah, that's why you want to also make sure that it's vital. The mindset and everything that we're talking about is as important as having a solid sales process. And a solid sales process, guess what? Is going to qualify people with timing, with money, with, where they are on change, all those kind of things, so that when you actually are on the phone with someone, it's the likelihood of them saying yes is much, much, much higher than just picking a person random and saying like, hey, do you want to buy my stuff? Well, I don't know, if I need it. So it's like you have to do your diligence and your homework there as well.
Yeah, I think it's an understanding, and people like you and your programs are really good for understanding what type of work is actually sort of there's difference between visibility activities and then the sales process, which includes relationships building. That's sort of kind of on the edge there, and that's where they intertwine. But a lot of people focus on their visibility. They post, they show up, they maybe do their lives, and they do that, and they consider that this is already part of the sales process, which really it's not necessarily is, because individually you're not building relationships yet, and so then they skip that important one-on-one relationships building process, I think, and go straight, and that's how they get wrong people, or people who are not ready, or people who can't even invest on their calls, which is disheartening, because you now spend half an hour to an hour. I never spent a half an hour because I talk too much, but so an hour, and that's the wrong person, where really that hour should be spent with a person who is hungry for what you are offering, really ready, has the money, and it's only the question is that, are you the one?
Yeah. And that's all in setting up your business, and that's all, in your qualifying, that's all. And also, we can do another round of hour, right, talking about that stuff, but that's all part of it. Right now, we took a sliver and we were talking about, what does it mean to be vulnerable? What does it mean to be empathetic? How can we infuse that in our conversation and give true and real scenarios so that people can be like, oh, okay, I get it. I see where, I could maybe get better at this, or infuse it, or not feel bad because I want to be vulnerable. That's incredible. That's part of the recipe within your sales conversation. But having a full-blown process requires a lot. I always say the sale is not one action. It's a series of steps that gets you there. So we can do a lot of other stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. And again, both of us would really like to talk, and to each other and to you guys. So it could be the round 3, because Julie actually was already a guest on my show about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. So this is it's so exciting to reconnect now, and kind of like on a even yet another level. I absolutely loved today's show, Julia. Thank you so much for sharing so openly and really, clearly pointing us to the direction what we need to consider and what we need to just stop thinking about things that are keeping you stuck, and start focusing and looking at it from a completely different, much more open and much more free-flowing angle, and the energy that you will have with it. It might sound to you like a long process, but it isn't.
No,
when you're approaching it the right way.
Yeah, once you get it down and you understand the pieces, the moving parts, you're like, oh, I get it. Okay. And I mean, you're already doing it anyway. If you're visible, if you're on this, hearing this, this show, you're visible, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing what it takes. So you're going to be further along, and this will be just like, a piece of the puzzle. You're like, okay, I get it now. I understand where I was maybe a little bit off, that I needed to either tweak or pivot or just take a different approach to it. So yeah, and that's another reason why I'm sharing this, the gift that I wanted everybody to have. If you go to, can I share it?
Yes, of course, of course.
If you go to giftfromjulia.com, super easy to remember, giftfromjulia.com. It's an opt-in, and I put together this incredible kind of action guide. I'll explain really quickly. I basically took about 60 women, entrepreneurs, incredible ladies, that they were just not connecting, not closing, nothing, not getting clients. And I was like, I need to figure out what's going on here, right? I mean, me coming from the sales industry, I was puzzled. So when I sat down and I started hearing them, I was like, oh my God, that's wrong. And this is wrong. And this is what we need to change. So I basically put up a guide. It's called the 5 Things Never to Say on the Discovery Call, and what to say instead. So download it. I trust it's going to be really, really packed with value for you, and let me know what you think.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Julia, for today. And guys, thank you so much for watching. If you are listening on a podcast, please make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss an episode. And if you're watching it on Facebook, please share, because other people need to get empowered. Other women need to get empowered to sell and use their vulnerability, use their empathy as a strength, right? And get in touch with Julia, and definitely grab that ebook to know what you should be saying, how you can change those no's into yeses, or maybe even just get the right people on the call in the first place. So we will see you on another episode of Show Up, Stand Out. And for now, show up powerfully, consistently, and build a visibility that sells. See you later.
Bye.